All right. Maybe I'm a little late on this one. This is an article I wanted to cover a few days ago. This happened on the 6th. It is now the 11th, but work happened. Wasn't able to get as many videos as I liked. I tried to make a few so I could keep getting out videos, but a little late. Still big news. Still good news. This was a follow up on an article I read before. I've got a couple articles here. This is going to be a shorter video, so I have two different topics to cover. This is the first one, and it's good. It's a good update. 7-year-old that we talked about before at the center of the transition custody battle opts to attend school as a boy. This was by the Washington Examiner. Obviously, this is about the video I covered the other week of the mom and dad in the custody battle over the young James Younger, who wanted whose mother tried to send him to school as a girl and call him Luna and all that. I'm going to read this article. It's very short and sweet, and then I'll talk about some of it as I go. James Younger, the 7-year-old at the center of the transgender custody battle, has decided to attend school as a boy. Younger's father, Jeffrey Younger, was blocked by a Texas judge after refusing to cooperate with the child's mother, and George Goulis, as she allowed the child to transition from male to female. George Goulis claimed that James Younger identified as a woman and wanted to be called Luna, something Jeffrey Younger refused to do. Judge Kim Cooks placed both parents under a gag order, granting joint membership conservatorship or joint managing conservatorship to both parents in late October, meaning they must both consent to any medical treatments their children are given. As part of the ruling, James Younger was allowed to decide which name he wanted to be called and how to be able to present himself, or how he wanted to present himself. James decided to attend school as a boy and be called by his given name. Now, I'm going to read the rest of it, but the rest of it is just kind of a recap of what's been going on that we already know. I did a whole video on it. I just wanted to talk a little bit extra about this because it's pretty important. The problem, I didn't mention this in my other video. The problem with this lady, Miss George Goulis, is how bad she's messing this kid up. And I'm really glad that he was allowed to pick whether he wanted to be a boy or a girl going to school. Because if he is confused about his gender and maybe he wants to go as a girl, he should be allowed to if he's a child. I don't think you should pressure the kid one way or another. So if he wants to go as a girl, you shouldn't say no and confuse him and force him to be a boy. If he wants to go in a dress, if he wants to be called Luna or whatever, fine. Most kids will grow out of that. Let him do what he's going to do. Do not transition him with drugs or anything like that, but let him do what he's going to do. Let him see if that's what he wants and let him grow from there. But if he's a boy, the same thing is true. If he wants to go to school as a young man and be called his actual name, James, let him do it. When children like this from a young age, as young as 3, as when she started doing this, there's no way it's a good idea. Children that young of age get extremely confused, and it gives them self-conscious problems that often have to be ironed out in counseling, and many times can't be, because the young child takes it as they're not being accepted for who they are if it is not their own idea. If the young man decided he wanted to present as a girl and be treated as such, just for whatever reason, maybe he's just confused, maybe he's experimenting with how he wants to be in life, maybe he finds out it isn't for him, that's one thing, and it's himself expressing himself, and it's healthy. He's probably going to grow out of it. Like I said, the 99% of them do. But whenever you force it on the kid, he has problems, especially whenever one parent is accepting of it. When the dad is like, hey, you do you, son. You want to be a boy? Okay, great. And he accepts you for who you are, or accepts you if you want to be the other way. But when the mom is doing the opposite, and the mom is forcing him to be Luna, forcing him to dress up as a girl, it creates problems where the son thinks that, especially from a young age, that he came out wrong. His mom didn't want him. His mom doesn't want to call him or accept his identity of who he is, and it really messes up a young man's mind. And I hate to compare this to serial killers, and stuff like that. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here or something, but if you listen to a lot of like murder podcasts and read up on serial killers and stuff, a lot of times this is an issue that comes up with them. People like Jeffrey Dahmer and other ones like it oftentimes had confusing things like this. Their parents beat them and dressed them up like a girl, or abused them, or they just mess with their minds. A lot of times that would happen, that these kids were forced to dress like girls because their parents didn't like the way they came out or whatever, and it really hurt them as a child. And I'm not saying all kids who get forced to dress up like a girl are going to end up as a serial killer. That's not true. There's underlying factors that are at play there. But I'm just saying that it's not healthy for a growing kid, and it really messes with your mind. You can see whenever those kind of examples show that when you set them on the wrong path to start, if there's something underlying there, it just makes it worse. And there's no reason for it. You shouldn't be forcing this kind of stuff upon your child. Anyway, like I said, this is good news. I really hope that it can be worked out in some kind of counseling. But let me read this last little part. The custody battle of the 7-year-old child sparked nationwide outrage, blah, blah, blah. We know that. George Goulas has requested Judge Cooks be recused from the case. This is after she changed the ruling before. She also maintains that James wanted to transition. In a press release, her attorney wrote, "Gender identity issues were not presented in one day or 1 week. It was over a year from whenever the first signs were presented and insisted upon by my child. Jeffrey Younger and George Goulas are both subject to a gag order until both of their children reach the age of 18. And I think this lady might be a little crazy. As I said before, her reasoning started with him wanting to play with a girl's McDonald's toy. I don't know how she ever got that from, even got these hints from stuff like that. If she's picking up those kind of hints to think the child needs to be transgender, this lady might not be the sanest, or might be trying to look for reasons to do it. All right, that's the article there. Let's switch over. This one is another one that I didn't want to make a big deal out of because it wasn't, but I'm gonna mention it. Back, I think it was last month, whenever the World Series came up, during the 5th game, President Trump, there was mixed cheers, but mostly boos from the crowd there in Washington. He went to a UFC fight. There was more mixed stuff, a little bit less boo, more mixed. And then in the game the other day, in which my LSU Tigers dominated the Nick Saban-led traitor bastard team of the Alabama Crimson Tide, President Trump was met with overall cheers. There was another article about the giant, if you've seen it, the giant baby Trump was slashed, and apparently the guy's getting federal charges. It's right here, actually. Let's see if it's got a picture. Oh, no. Anyway, if you can see it here, the baby Trump got slashed by an Alabama guy who was apparently sick of it and not taking their stupid protest thing, which is another thing to discuss altogether. Because Alabama at the time apparently said they weren't going to take any kind of people were freaking out about it. They were like, big disruptions weren't going to be tolerated, and I can understand that. This is an event with 102,000 people just inside the stadium, not counting the thousands outside. And they weren't people who they were taking it as like, if you boo the president, you're going to be kicked out or lose your seats. That's not what they meant, because there were boos. They were sparse, but there were some. And they were saying protests wouldn't be allowed. Obviously, protests were allowed. They had a giant baby Trump outside with people around it. It was about people basically getting drunk and starting fights. It was probably actually more aimed towards Alabama fans who were big Trump supporters fighting people who were protesting than anything, or people who ran on the field. That's the kind of stuff that they were talking about. And people were like, "You can't ban the First Amendment," blah blah blah. That's not what they meant. They knew what they were talking about, but whatever. Let me read a little bit, but it's not much. Yeah, I just talked about all this. He was hoping to find some love Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium, where the top 2 teams of college football are meeting. Based on Saturday's response from the majority, there was a showdown between LSU and Alabama. Trump was in friendly territory. There they were, with 12:10 showing on the first quarter clock. During the timeout in Crimson Tide's initial drive, President Trump and his wife Melania were shown in the stadium jumbotrons. The partisan crowd erupted, and they ended up cheering USA and all kinds of cheers. Let me, if it'll load. There's the video. And as you can hear, it turns into USA chants. Anyway, what this means, I don't really know. I just wanted to bring it up mostly so I could talk about LSU beating Alabama and how much I hate Alabama. And even if they're Trump fans, I don't care. It just shows that how partisan things can be. You go to Washington in the middle of the city where it's mostly a bunch of liberals who vote there. That's what you're gonna get boos. You go to a UFC fight that's about 50-50. Obviously there's a lot of Democrats and liberals who go to these UFC fights, but I think the fights there's a lot more of the conservative crowd that goes because they enjoy that kind of sporting event. And then you go to an Alabama, middle of Birmingham event, and you're gonna get almost all cheers. That's just what it's gonna be. I think these articles are stupid, and they're just trying to divide people. I mean, if you go to the a lot of the like CNN types, they were still finding a way to say that President Trump was getting booed, and it shows the division in our country. It's like, come on, man. Some of them gave him credit that he's going to get the cheers, but I mean, it's Alabama. What do you expect? I'm not saying this is a win for Trump. I mean, what do you're in Birmingham, Alabama. Yeah, you're going to get cheers. All right. That's the video. Just wanted to mention it. Wrap it up. Bing, bang, boom, bye.